Locker Room, with all the sports news you need, live.
Good afternoon and welcome to a slightly later edition of The Locker Room. We're on 5 till 6 today. I am your host, Graham Duffy, looking back at the Premier Sports Cup, although I don't really want to, given the fact what happened yesterday. And I think my two guests are exactly the same because they're not in this either. So, firstly, it's Robbie Collins. Robbie, how are you doing, mate?
Not bad. How are you?
Not bad, man, not bad. And also we have Alistair Blair, who likes to join us on a Sunday, and he's maybe not quite as gutted because I think it was Rangers, so maybe it was expected. Alistair, how are you?
I'm gutted.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much all that, to be honest. We'll get into that, though. So we will talk about this Premier Sports Cup. There was games today that finished. Motherwell 1, Kilmarnock 0. Celtic were 3-1 winners against Hibs, and it was also Dundee United 1, St Mirren 0. We'll look back at the games yesterday, but before we get into that, we do have to start on a slightly sour note, because I'm pretty sure that everybody has now seen the video that's circulating of the Rangers game yesterday, where a St Johnstone supporter liaison officer was attacked by Rangers fans, some of them, and their drum was stolen off her. Now, I've said this already, it's an absolute disgrace what happened. There is absolutely no place for that, and I hope that the people that did this are banned and punished suitably, because there is no place for that. This lady was doing her job. She was doing nothing. She was causing no offence to anyone. And to have this happen to her is an absolute disgrace. Now, it has been condemned by Rangers, which is good. And I know that it's not their fault. You can't control your fans. But what happened yesterday is an absolute disgrace, and it should not be allowed to happen. So I just want to say that I hope the lady that this happened to is all right. Her name's Bev. It's an absolute joke. And I'm pretty sure that my sentiments are echoed by everybody on here and by Robbie and Alistair. Alistair, you're a St Johnstone fan. Absolute disgrace what happened yesterday.
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is that obviously I know Bev, and I've messaged her, and I've got a positive emoji back. So I said, "Are you okay?" I expressed some thoughts about what happened. So I think she's all right. She's a pretty resilient lady, but more to the point, this is going off a tangent, but it's incredibly relevant. I've interviewed a lot of people for our disability campaign at the SFSA, and without exception, they've all mentioned Bev, and also without any prompting, they've all said she is one of the nicest, most helpful, most organised disability access officers and SLOs in the country. And I know that from personal experience as well. So for some, it doesn't matter who it is, but for somebody whose job is actually to help supporters to be, you see the picture of her slumped on the ground. It's really shocking. And I think you're right. Every decent fan, which is the vast majority, let's not pretend otherwise, it is the vast majority, will condemn this and say it is disgraceful. And we've just seen all the riots down south. We've been very thankful we haven't had them up here. But what we've seen there to tackle it is actually, in my view, what we need to see happening here. As you said, identify these people, ban them. I'd ban them for life. And I'd like to see the book being thrown at them. And to illustrate the point, let's imagine it was the other way around. Let's imagine it was Saints fans who'd attacked the Rangers SLO. I'd want my club not just to come out and condemn it. I'd want the manager. I'd want Adam Webb, the owner. And from what I can see, probably would have done. I'd want Stan, the chief exec, to come out and say, this is not St Johnstone. You are not coming back in our ground. We are going to help the police find you, track you down, arrest you and charge you and go through the due process of law. And we hope they throw the book at you. And if we start to get that message across, there is less chance of this happening again. Won't stop it, because we know there's always been thuggery and violence attached to football. It goes through phases. In the 70s and the 80s, it was horrendous. It's got a lot better, but it's now creeping back in again. And yeah, it is absolutely disgraceful. Disgraceful is the right word. Shocking in other respects. And the people who did it are cowards and thugs.
Good afternoon to Sandy on YouTube. Goodwin bandwagon is flying. Also, good afternoon to Sean. All good. Jack, hope you're doing well, mate. It was so bad what they've done to her. Exactly. I mean, I think that's pretty much echoed. Robbie, we've all seen it. It's absolutely horrific. Nobody deserves to go to a football game and have that done to them. Now, it's been condemned in our group chat. I know Stephen Rayside is furious, and we all are. That kind of thing should not be happening in football. It doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man. It doesn't matter. This person was doing nothing. You know, there are supporters liaison officers, as Alistair said there. They're helping the fans out. And Alistair's used a word that I've said as well. It's cowardly. To do that to anybody is an absolute coward's act.
Yeah, I mean, it's a disgrace. I mean, I think what Alistair was touching on there, I think I've heard so many positive things about Beth and the work that she does in the community, especially for St Johnstone. So obviously it shouldn't be happening to anyone, but you know, I just think that I never get it, because I always think and look and go, you know, I've grew up in a time where, you know, it is starting to rise a bit again, that sort of stuff in football. And I always look and go, well, I've never once had a thought like, why would anyone want to come to football just to do stuff like that? It honestly makes no sense, and it sort of plays with my brain a bit. And I sit and think like, why? That's the main question. Like, why would you want to do something like that? And I think the people, I believe there is a picture that has been identified, and I believe someone has been arrested. So if they have, then, you know, fling everything at them, and they should get the same treatment as just about anyone else who commits them sort of things do. Because again, as you guys said, it is disgraceful, and all thoughts go out to her, and I hope she is okay. So I think you guys said it's disgraceful.
For me, Alistair, as much as yes, ban these people from football, for me, give them a prison sentence. Because that's what should happen after that. If you're attacked in the street, then you get a prison sentence. And that's what should happen after yesterday. Because there is no place for that. And I don't get what goes through folks' heads. You're going to a football game to watch your team. You see a female standing on her own, causing no harm, and you go and do that. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a man or woman, it doesn't matter. But the simple fact is, it is absolute cowardly, and these people deserve to be punished to the highest order.
Yeah, and you know, people have said it's just stupid, immature young men. There's lots of immature young men who go. I mean, I was an immature young man going to football once. I'm sure you guys were as well, and I'm pretty sure we didn't do things like that because it just doesn't occur to us. And I made reference to what we've seen down south, and certainly the UK Prime Minister has made a point of making sure there are exemplary sentences, and that will stop people if people are actually. They realise the consequences of their actions are something a bit more than maybe just a ban for a couple of games. But actually, A, I'm going to have a jail record, which will have an impact on my ability to get work, etc., etc., etc. And B, I'm not going to get to see my team again. And society actually turns around and says, look, this is just not acceptable. That will, I think, send a signal. The authorities could do social media campaigns saying, this is terrible, please stop doing it. We could try and bring in strict liability for clubs. The clubs won't wear it because, of course, as we know, you just need somebody to go and provoke something, and then all of a sudden there's an issue. But the law can take place. And I think I talked about the vast majority of decent fans. You do not have to be a raging, reactionary, Tory, right-wing, hanging, flogging type person. Most normal people look at this and go, it's just wrong. They need to be punished. That's what I think the vast majority of people will look, including Rangers fans. And I'm sure, like you guys, I've got friends who are Rangers and Celtic fans, universally condemn this. And they will also say, look, we've got to do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie, I've seen folks saying on Twitter and other stuff that, you know, what punishment should Rangers get? This isn't a Rangers issue for me. This is the fans. You can't be responsible for what your fans do. You know, Rangers can't be held accountable for their supporters. They're not even supporters, really. Attacking somebody like that. For me, Rangers don't deserve a punishment for this because it's not their fault. It's the fans that are the problem.
Yeah, I think it's spot on there. I mean, I think stuff like this happens in every club. I mean, I'm sure we see it at every club that, you know, we all follow. I think it is gradually getting worse. But, you know, the clubs can't take fault for this. I mean, the clubs, you know, as they love to have the fans there, but, you know, in every fan base, you're going to get the small minority that do stuff like that. And, you know, I think it's spot on there. I don't think the clubs can really do anything about their own fan base. And I think law does need to come into this in a sense that, you know, this shouldn't be happening. You know, if you're getting attacked on the street anywhere, then, you know, the people who do it should be arrested. And I think it's always, I don't know, I don't like looking at it because it's, you know, I've grew up and I just never goes through my head to want to do this type of thing. I will never get the people that want to attack people or cause riots at football games. It never makes any sense to me. And I just can't believe it's happened again. And I hope it doesn't get worse, but I fear it might.
I would say to you guys, actually, I mean, the clubs can do something. Yeah, I agree with you that it's difficult to control your fans. That's absolutely the case. But the clubs can be much more strict in terms of the way they actually deal. If they, for example, if this person is convicted and they're a season ticket holder, the club can actually make a public statement and say, this guy is banned for the rest of his life or whatever. And I think if the clubs do that kind of things, as I said before, if it was our club with the boot was on their foot, I'd want to see not just the officials, I'd want to see the manager, everybody connected with the club coming up and condemning it, because that's the only way you're going to get into people's heads that actually, because peer pressure works, that's the way to tackle some of it. So the clubs do have a responsibility, but I think it's very hard to actually pin them down on it because of the reasons we all know about. You would simply get an opposing fan going into your home fans, causing trouble, and then getting the club into trouble. So it's very, very hard. But the club should actually be much more vociferous in their condemnation and actually be much more public in the example they make of fans who actually do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I just want to get out there because we're only on for an hour, but I want to get out there at the start because it was abhorrent what happened yesterday. Let's move on to cheerier thoughts. Actually, not really, because all of us are out. So if anyone sees the Premier Sports Cup draw, even though we're not in it, then let me know what it is, because I'm doing this live on my phone, so I can't see what the draw is. But let's start, because Robbie's on, let's give him the joy of talking about Dundee United against St Mirren. Dundee United won by 1-0 today. Ross Graham's goal after 34 minutes. Robbie, what's your thoughts on the game, mate?
It's hard to sum it up, put it that way. I mean, just if you look at the team sheet, I mean, if we take the overall game into thoughts, I thought Fraser Taylor, who again had I think it was his first professional start for the club today, I thought he done very, very well in large parts of that game. In a midfield where you're missing Mark O'Hara and Dennis Adeniran, no doubt two of the strongest midfielders we have, it's always going to be a tough game. You've got to give credit to Jim Goodwin. I thought he got it spot on today. I actually feel like Dundee United probably could have been 3 or 4-0 up by the end of the game. I know Craig Sibbald hit the crossbar, and I think Laurie Moult did as well. So two very good chances there for them to get more. The draw is just happening right now behind me, so I'll keep you guys up to date with that. But I think in terms of us, I think you can see the fitness levels are starting to drop a bit. I mean, when you're playing Thursday Sunday football, Graham, you'll know it is not easy with a squad, especially when it's so small in our case. We have a very, very small squad, so it's always going to be tough. I think I'm more glad than not glad that it's over. I feel, because we can focus on the league and try and push for that again. But I think I just think with the next couple of games coming up, Celtic and Dundee away, it's only going to get tougher. And I think we need Mark O'Hara back, especially because he's been a big miss for us. So, no great today, but I think it is just a case of that Thursday Sunday sort of stuff for us, that we are getting too tired, and maybe that's why the results are poor. And you need to remember, these are just players as well with the amount of travelling that they do. They are just human, so it's always going to be tough for them. But no, credit to Dundee United for a good win for them. But we've got some big games coming up.
If that draw is what I've just seen, then I'm actually glad we're out, because it's Celtic Falkirk. So good luck, Falkirk. I don't actually mind we're out now. So, I mean, I can have said this for a long time, Alistair, that playing Thursday Sunday is very difficult. And I think St Mirren have found out to their cost today, as Robbie's basically just said. You need a big squad to cope with Thursday Sunday. And maybe that's had an impact today. But what is up for Dundee United, though? I think they started the season very well. There's still some United fans who are not convinced by Jim Goodwin, but that's a big, big win for them today.
Yeah, and I think you're right. We talked about this on the show on Friday, the impact of playing in Europe, and the fact that if you don't, and if you lose players like O'Hara, then clearly, these are class players. But United in the first game against Dundee, I was surprised, because Dundee have been so good last season, and obviously they've been hammering people this season, and they gave them a really good game, and arguably draw was just about right, but United were the better team by miles in the first half. I think St Mirren are a good team. I think St Mirren ought to be in the top 6 based on what I've seen last season and what I've seen in the squad. So it may well be it's partly the fatigue. And we saw it with Kilmarnock as well, obviously, and we'll get to talk about that later on. But so there's your two teams that were playing in Europe. And obviously that's had an impact on them. I appreciate that doesn't apply to Rangers, but they were playing a few days before, so we'll ignore that. And other than that, I see a few other things. Motherwell v Dundee United coming through. Aberdeen against, it says here, Spartans, but I think that's Spartans. So they've obviously managed to make sure that the big teams are playing the wee teams. So not that I'm suggesting for a second that this is fixed.
By the way, that's a great draw for Spartans. After that win yesterday, going to Aberdeen, who are in really good form, that's a cracking draw. They get some money for that as well. That's a really good draw.
Yeah, they were good too yesterday. I mean, okay, Ross County had chances, but I mean, they scored a brilliant goal. And, it's, by the way, I'm not being serious about the games being fixed or the draw. just in case my London friends from the SFA are watching. But I'm sure other people will disagree with me on that. No, you look at it, you think Motherwell, Dundee United, Motherwell are at home, Rangers, Dundee are good. If that was at Dens, I would say that was actually a really difficult tie to call. Celtic, Falkirk, I'm sorry, Falkirk. I know Falkirk are good, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a minute, Graham. But the only surprise today was that Celtic only won by a couple of goals. And you're right, Aberdeen against Spartans, great for Spartans. Aberdeen almost certainly will win that. So I'm conscious I was ignoring your questions, which is how did Dundee United game go? And yeah, we said on Friday it was going to be tight, and it was. And that was the same with the other game that was played today. At Motherwell and Kilmarnock, it was tight, and the European effect. I'm sure it had an impact on both Sutton and Kilmarnock.
I mean, I said it to a couple of mates yesterday after we got beat by Falkirk. I actually did say to them, I guarantee we'll get Celtic in the draw. So I don't actually care now. We're out. It doesn't matter. They got knocked out anyway. But I was going to ask, Robbie, did anyone stand out from a St Mirren point of view? And also Dundee United, was there any massive standouts for them?
I think in terms of us, I mean, you need to look at Fraser Taylor. I mean, he's only 20 years old, but he's not played many professional games to come into a midfield where, we have just been put out of Europe, and there is larger expectation to go through this game because, we've not had great success in the Cups. We're more than likely always seem to draw Celtic away. So this was the big chance, 2 games away from Hampden. And it's just disappointing that, there was so many injuries and we did have these type of fixtures so quickly. It just wasn't to be. But I think you've got to look at Fraser Taylor stepping into that midfield. I mean, I thought he was phenomenal today. I thought Sean Rooney had a decent game as well. I thought, after looking at, I try not to be too negative, but Scott Tanzer for me is one that's dropped off a bit in quality this season. I think with the addition of Jayden Brown back into the squad, it's definitely gave him competition. I think Jayden Brown's probably been the better of the two so far, but again, I'll try not to be too negative. I think in a Dundee United standpoint, Craig Sibbald was a really, really good player today. I thought he controlled that midfield quite well. The other one as well is Trabinovsky, I think his name is. Yeah, I thought he had another really, really good game as well today. So, good standouts for Dundee United. They've obviously got themselves a decent-ish draw away at Motherwell, so it'll be interesting to see how they go. But full credit to them because I thought they were excellent today.
You've got about 2 weeks left to transfer window, Robbie. Would you expect Robinson to do any more business? Is there any areas you still think you need strengthened?
I think based on the performances that I've seen so far, like another attacker maybe in the building, I don't think we'll get one. I don't think that's where Robinson's looking, but I'd maybe like to see one. I just think, today we had Mandron, Olasanya, James Scott and Ayunga in the team. And I'm going to be honest, I don't remember any of them having a clear-cut chance. So I think it was very productive. But I know we have been linked with Killian Phillips. He used to play with Aberdeen last season, so it'd be interesting to see if we can get that one over the line. But apart from that, I don't think so. I'm relatively happy with the team. I just think we need injuries to come back and then we can kickstart our season.
Robbie, can I just ask you a question? What's St Mirren fans' take on Scott Tanzer generally?
I think when Scott Tanzer first came into the team, I thought, St Mirren fans were sort of put off. I think he definitely had a poor first season. But, he signed that contract and then he played the second season. I thought he was excellent, probably one of the standout players. I mean, it was him and Ryan Strain at the time, and I think we played a Motherwell away, and Strain whips it back post to Tanzer, and he scores, and we play a week after, I can't remember who we played, and Tanzer done the exact same to Strain, so I think Strain's definitely, Tanzer, sorry, it's been one that's been really, really good since he came in. I'm just happy he's got a bit of competition now. It sort of felt like for a couple of seasons there, he was just sort of free rolling in that team because you had no competition in there, but now he finally has some, and I think it'll only benefit him.
In terms of Dundee United, Alistair, I know that Sandy, our Dundee United fan, says we're going to win it all. I mean, it's not been a bad start to this. It's not been a bad start to this season for them. I think they have signed very well. They're in the quarterfinal of the League Cup. I mean, how well do you think Dundee United could do this season? Could they potentially get in the top 6, or do you think they'll miss out on that?
Well, it's too early to say. I know that's a cop-out, but I think it is too early to say. They have been better than I thought. You're right. They've signed a lot of good players, and you can see, with Tony Watt going, there was a guy who was scoring goals for them last year. So he's done all the right things. He's brought in players who actually are an improvement on what he already had. You've then got to see how they actually step up, and so far you've got to say they're doing that. We're playing them actually next, so it'll be intriguing, and it's in Dundee as well. It's at Tannadice. So it will be intriguing to see how that goes. That'll be, as far as I'm concerned, a yardstick for us as a club, because we're obviously trying to prove that we're not stick-on relegation favourites. And I don't think, based on what I've seen so far, that anybody actually is. So, yes, they could do. I would certainly say at the start of the season, I was looking at St Mirren, Aberdeen, Killie, Hearts. They're the teams that are going to be challenging up there. And then you could see ourselves, Motherwell, Ross County, Dundee United. Dundee somewhere on the cusp between the two halves of the table. It's too early to say. I think you've got a position by which a couple of good games can make you look good, and then you can go on a run, and all of a sudden, the way fans are nowadays, they're just like, this is rubbish, get rid of him. Let's get somebody else in. And I think because they've got the derbies and they've got the Dundee thing, that will also help. That gives them an impetus, because every now and then you've got a game against your big rivals, which you're obviously up for, and if you win it or you get a good result, that gives the fans a boost. So yeah, I think United they will be all right. I cannot see United getting relegated. If they make the top 6, it will be 6th or possibly 5th by the skin of their teeth. Had a good season.
So for anyone who's not yet heard the quarterfinal draw of the Premier Sports Cup, it is Aberdeen v Spartans, Celtic v Falkirk, Rangers against Dundee, and Dundee United against Motherwell. That is the draws. Let's move on to Celtic. Robbie, Celtic beat Hibs by 3-1, a double from Daiz Maeda and a goal from Nicholas Kuhn. Hibs did get a goal back through Kukarec to make it 2-1. But again, Celtic this season already are looking very, very strong. And that's only with Kasper Schmeichel, Bernardo and Ida signed. They will probably strengthen further, but they are looking very, very good so far this season. And that's a worry for everybody else.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we spoke about it on Friday, spending £9.5 million on a striker is just something that no one else in the league can do, really. I mean, if you look at Maeda today, I thought it was fantastic. His second goal especially was really, really good, rotating for him. So I thought he was really good today. And, I've always sort of spoke to Celtic fans, and, I love asking them how many more signings do you want, because I think it's a different answer for everyone. Some people I've spoke to are more than happy to stick with the signings that they've made now, and some people maybe want 2 or 3 more signings. So it's definitely interesting to see what Celtic do, but I think they're doing it to upgrade, because I think, it's all well and good keeping that team in the league right now, but they're going to be getting into another Champions League season, and we know Celtic historically haven't been the best in the Champions League in recent years, so I think Celtic need to strengthen some more for the Champions League. But no, a comfortable win for them today, and I just wonder how Hibs fans feel about that performance, because, getting a goal at Celtic Park, it's no easy, but it just felt like it was a wee bit of a consolation goal, even though it was only 2-1, and I just wonder how Hibs fans feel about Gray in the rest of the season now, because obviously it's not been a good start for Hibs at all, and I'm not too sure who they have next, but they need to start winning sometime.
They've got Dundee at home next week, but it's a fair point, Alistair, because, if we just touch on Celtic for a second, even though Hibs got the goal back, Celtic looked very comfortable, and I always thought they had more gears to go up, and they did, and they got that third goal. But the worrying thing for me is, and I think I said this on Friday as well, Celtic look very, very strong this season, and I think they'll just get stronger. And the gap between Celtic and everyone else is just going to get bigger. Now, I've said already that I don't think I will see in my lifetime anybody else win the league apart from Celtic and Rangers, probably Celtic mainly. But they're just getting stronger. And I think now they probably will end up going to win. They could easily win the treble and go invincible because I think they've got a very, very strong team there.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, I listened to it on the radio in the car coming back from seeing my son and his family. And it started off with Hibs having a little flurry at the start, and the totally unbiased Paggy Bonner was, saying that Hibs started well, and then of course a couple of minutes in the game, Celtic scored their first goal, and at that stage it looked like it's going to be a turkey shoot. And just listening to the commentary, that's what they were expecting. And then Hibs scored what, by all accounts, I'm not saying it was a really good goal, and I still thought, I said to my wife, it's going to be 4-1 because Celtic are just too good. And talking to Celtic fans of my acquaintance, who are friends obviously, and is this actually a good thing for Scottish football? Because as you say, nobody else winning it. I don't think there's anybody's going to win the league apart from Celtic this year. They are so far ahead. They have got so much more money. I mean, Robbie talked about the £9 million transfer. That's more than the turnover of most of the clubs, I think, in the Premiership. There is no chance that you can compete apart from the odd game now and then when you get a break and you get lucky, which again, in my view, is another reason for getting rid of playing each other 4 times. But it's not good for Scottish football. And Celtic are not going to get into England in a hurry. There's nowhere else they can go short of a sort of European Super League Division 2 or 3 or something. So they're never going to really be able to compete in Europe because the players are not going to come here. If you're a good footballer and you want to compete in Europe, you're going to go to the top teams in England or Spain or wherever else. You're not, with the greatest respect, going to come to the top teams in Scotland because you look at them and go, well, it's a turkey shoot most weeks, and we're actually, probably going to struggle to get through a few rounds of Europe. That's not good for Celtic either, in my opinion. And everyone says, they need a strong Rangers. They need strong competition. Doesn't matter who it is. The chances are it will be Rangers because of all the reasons of money and stuff. But again, you go back to the 80s and Dundee United and Aberdeen, that was a great time for Scottish football. Total change from what we're used to. I cannot see, I think you're right, Celtic will walk everything this year. And I talked on Friday about how that creates a problem because Rangers fans can see that coming, and that's obviously causing resentment and disquiet there. None of this is, I think, good for our game because it just, quite frankly, gets boring.
I mean, Kucherev does get a go back for Hibs, obviously, Robert, make it 2-1, but I think they're slightly unfortunate in the fact they've had to play Celtic twice in the last week because they played them last week at Easter Road. They then played them again today at Celtic Park. Obviously, they were hammered in the first game by St Mirren. St Mirren were great that day. But I think it was mentioned on Friday to Mikey, and I get the point as well, that at the moment, I'm not really seeing a style of play under David Gray. Now, he's got Dundee next week at Easter Road, which is a game, again, it'll be tough because Dundee look very good. But I'm not yet seeing a style of play that David Gray wants to implement.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mikey summed up on Friday. I mean, there is a lack of that game plan for David Gray. And I think you've seen it for the first game to now. I mean, against us, it was just literally balls over the top to Martin Boyle. And I'm sure, getting a goal away at Celtic Park must be a nice feeling. But, Hibs fans will be expecting a lot more, especially since, the likes of Mikey. I think he's been very vocal about saying Hibs are probably the 5th best team in the country. So I think Hibs fans will definitely be expecting more. But again, though, you've said that they are playing Celtic twice. It's never going to be easy. So I think, this is now the time where Hibs fans can start sort of judging Gray's ability as a manager, especially with Dundee at home, which, it won't be easy, but it is a game where more expectation will come into play that Hibs need to go on and get the 3 points here, because if Dundee get away with the 3 points here, it's real danger signs already for Hibs, and you can just imagine the reaction for the fans, as Mikey included, if Hibs lose next week. I mean, there will be uproar for David Gray already, and it's still very early on in the season, so I think it's very, very difficult to play Celtic twice, but even in the first game, there was just such a lack of anything from Hibs, and that's really, really worrying for them. And I just wonder if David Gray's the man to take them forward.
Well, we've got half an hour to go. We've got through our first half hour. We've got a few more games to go. So let's crack through these today, Motherwell beat Killie by 1-0. Moses BA after 96 minutes. Stephen will be delighted with that. Now, another manager that's been under a bit of pressure, Alistair, is Stuart Kettlewell, and I think that's a big win. Now, it went to extra time, it's a big, big win, and they can look forward to quarter-final against Dundee United. I think Stephen will be delighted with that. I've not been able to see the game, but it's a big, big win for them, and I think Stuart Kettlewell needed that.
Yeah, I managed to watch extra time on it. I chose that as opposed to watching the Celtic game, because I thought, obviously, Celtic were going to win at the canter there for me. And they were playing against 10 men again. Kilmarnock have had a very poor start of the season, apart from getting through in Europe, or getting through the next stage of Europe, which is a surprise because I think they're a good team with a lot of very good players. Now, you look at it today and you go back to what I referred to earlier on, what we talked about on Friday on the show. Coming back from Europe, it was the same last week against us. They didn't play well. They had somebody sent off much, much earlier, and that makes it so much harder. As it was, Motherwell scored a good goal, possibly could have scored more, but Killie were never out of it. They were able to hang in there and create, the potential for openings. I think I'd go as far as saying I wouldn't say they created an awful lot of chances, but I said on Friday I thought Motherwell would win. It'd be a very tight game. I'm very smug and say I was right.
I mean, Robbie, Alistair's right. European football, Killie were great on Thursday. Brilliant win against Tromsø. Domestically, they've had a terrible start. I mean, what has gone wrong for Killie domestically? They've not won a game yet, but then neither have we. Again, they're down to 10 men today, which is always difficult. But what has gone wrong? Because Killie last season were brilliant. They were a brilliant team. But this season, they just haven't got started yet.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a massive hangover for last season. I mean, you know how good they were, and to start the season, obviously, again, away at Celtic, that's never going to be easy, but they have picked up some really bad results by Europe, and I think, yes, it was a really, really good win against Tromsø on Thursday, but now they need to have the task of playing Copenhagen, which is another 2 Thursday Sunday games. So, for McInnes, I think it's really worrying that, this squad isn't playing the best right now. Obviously, in Europe, they've managed to sneak some results. But, they're going to be playing a few games over the next couple of weeks, and it's going to really determine their season, because if Kelly lose the next couple of games in the league, then, warning signs will be ringing for Kilmarnock fans, and they potentially might find themselves out of Europe as well. I think last week I spoke about, they could have been out of 2 competitions in 4 days. Well, they've managed to get through in 1, but how long is that going to last? Because unfortunately for Kelly, I don't see them being able to best Copenhagen over 2 legs. Unfortunately, I just think Copenhagen will be a bit too strong for them. But, I think for McInnes, he's got to focus now in on the league, try and pick up his first sort of a big win, because it's going to get to the point now where the Kelly fans will start getting on their back, and that's the last thing McInnes wants after such a good season. So I just feel like there's maybe, I don't know, it feels like a bit of a lack of confidence for the Kelly players that they can still push on, try and get these big results, even though they seem to be doing it in Europe. But in the league, it's just not happening for them. So I think next week needs to be a big win for Kelly.
Well, let's move on to the games from yesterday, and let's start at Hampden. Rangers 2, St Johnstone 0. Cyril Dessers after 61 minutes and Ross McCausland after 92 minutes. But the first goal had a lot of controversy about it, because Cyril Dessers looked like he was pulled up for a foul on Jack Sanders. Now, apparently the referee had blown his whistle after the goal went in, and I've heard it back, and he did actually blow after the whistle, but there was a lot of controversy. Alistair, what was your take on the game overall, and in particular that incident that led to the opening goal?
Overall, if I was trying to look at it objectively, which obviously I'm not, Rangers probably deserved to win by 1 goal. The second goal was maybe icing on the cake. First half, we were good. They weren't particularly good. The Rangers manager's comments afterwards about Rangers should have won 5-1, I'm sorry, are nonsense. He's basing that on the fact Rangers created chances. They created more chances than we did. But he's assuming they're going to take all their chances, because they had about 5 good chances. We had about 3 good chances. So you're going to say it was 5-3. As we all know, footballers don't take their chances. So to come out with something like that, I'm sorry, is just nonsense. They turned down good chances. They could have scored maybe 1 or 2 more. Second half, they were the better team. Conor Barron came on, made a big difference, I think, brought a bit of calm about the place. Our front two troubled them. The goal at the time, I thought he was signalling for the free kick, although you obviously couldn't tell whether he was blowing the whistle or not. It's very hard to comment about it without it sounding like sour grapes. If the boot was on the other foot, I think you'd find the Rangers fans going mad and saying this is ridiculous. But because it's us, it doesn't really matter. Well, it kind of does, because he seemed to indicate visually that he was given a free kick. They didn't blow the whistle. And this comes back to VAR and all the second phase nonsense and, linesmen not putting their flags up and all that kind of stuff. Basic rule in football, play the whistle. So our players shouldn't have stopped. So they're at fault if that's the case. You don't play. You play the whistle. You don't play the signals the referee gives. So I can kind of get that. I have no idea whether, in fact, it was a foul either way, but it looks like it wasn't. So on that basis, there's a goal, and yeah, it's 1-0. I would say that when it was still 1-0 and we're in extra time, Sidibe missed the best chance of the game. Never mind the ones that Rangers had when they were decent chances. This was an absolute right in front of goal. All he's got to do is get on target and avoid the keeper, and it's 1-1. And we're going into extra time with our tails up. But then he's a guy from the 7th tier of England. He's starting to make a name for himself. He is not perfect. He is a good striker. I think he'll go beyond us quite quickly and play for a bigger club and make more money. And I would wish him all the best with that. But I think, yes, Rangers deserve to win, just not by the margin that Clement said. Again, if I was a Rangers fan, I'd look at that and go, we're playing the team that's supposed to be the stick-on for relegation. And we created chances but couldn't take them. There's a long way to go in the season, but they have obviously got injuries. Again, injury last night. They've got problems which are to do with the fact they're playing at Hampden. I think somebody's asked the question about the Ibrox-Hampden situation. You could see that in the crowd last night. A lot of people have criticised them for going and celebrating in front of their ultras. Just to go back very briefly at the Bev Mayer thing, I think if they'd known about that, I would hope they wouldn't have done that. And that showed how big a game that was for them. I said on Friday, this is a really big game for Rangers. If they'd lost that, you can imagine the sky falling in with their fans. So they had to win it more than we did, I think. And they did. So fair play to them from that point of view. As I said, they more or less deserved it. I think people will look at Saints and go, yep, we've got people up front who can trouble other teams. We're maybe not quite such a stick-on for relegation as people thought at the start of the season. Unless you tell me otherwise, of course, Graham.
I'm saying nothing. I'll keep my mouth shut. But Robbie, I kind of thought this Rangers celebration yesterday was a bit over the top, to be brutally honest. They did win the game. Michael spoke on Friday about taking the game in stages for St Johnstone. They got to 60 minutes before the lost opening goal. But actually, St Johnstone did well. They did create chances. Sidibe hit the bar. They did create chances. St Johnstone did well yesterday. Rangers probably did deserve to win the game. But again, I still think there's something missing for Rangers. I don't think they look brilliant. I mean, you look at Celtic, they look miles ahead already.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on at Rangers right now. But first of all, I mean, to Alistair and St John's, I just want to give huge credit because, I mean, for the away support that you guys took to Hampden, it looked amazing there for what I've seen. To the first opening sort of half an hour, I thought actually Rangers gave you guys a lot of time on the ball, which doesn't usually happen when you play an Old Firm team. I thought St Johnstone had a lot of time to be fairly comfortable on the ball and sort of play at their own sort of pace at times. But ultimately, Rangers did take their chances, and I think just quickly on that goal, it was quite controversial. I think I'm always one, I'm sure you guys are the same. You'll go to football, and if somebody goes down fairly lightly, you'll get quite annoyed that they've just sort of played for that contact. I think I'm all for referees not giving decisions like that as fouls. But again, it comes down to this thing, they need to be consistent with it. If they're going to consistently be stricter and allow, a bit more sort of contact in the game, then I'm all for it. But if you're going to not give that 1 week, then give it the next week, then what's the point? So I think I'm all for it, but it just needs to be a wee bit more stricter. But in terms of the game, I thought McCausland took his goal really well. I think I was on here last week speaking about sort of criticism, his sort of finishing ability. But I thought he took that really, really well. I think in terms of the St Johnstone point of view, I think they created a few chances, definitely could have got a goal, but unfortunately it just wasn't to be for them. And I think, I don't know about you, Alistair, but I think St Johnstone can take a lot of positives going into the season ahead. I mean, a lot of people wrote them off early on, and already they've showed a couple of really, really good battling performances. So for them, I think it's really good. But I actually just wanted to ask you quickly. I mean, one of the midfield, I like keeping an eye on former players, and I think one that interests me is Cammy McPherson. I mean, what do you make of him? Because I always sort of liked Cammy when he was a wee bit younger, playing for the academy, and now he's at St Johnstone. I love being intrigued by these sort of players. So I mean, what do you think of him and how big a season could he have?
I think I'm going to upset you now, actually. We signed Cammy McPherson after we'd got, Ali McCann had been sold when he didn't need to be, and we were desperate for a signing. Cammy McPherson was available to anybody who wanted him. That's not my words, that's the words of the then Kilmarnock manager, who I happen to know quite well. Saints tweeted, "We are delighted to sign Cammy McPherson," and that compounded the error for the fans, because not only we sold our best player, we brought in somebody that another club didn't want. Most St Johnstone fans do not rate him at all. If you look at the game last night, he gave the ball away a few times. Okay, he had his fox's paw with his stupid tweet, which I thought the club dealt with quite well. But if you compare him to another former St Mirren player, Graham Carey, not in the same class. Carey is a class footballer who probably made us suspect the majority of our goals last year. And we desperately, desperately need somebody else in the middle of the park. Now, Levine said that. I think the other problem with McPherson is he threw the young players under the bus after the defeat in an interview in the League Cup. And generally, he's a midfield player. He scored one goal in his career with us. That is not a return for a midfield player. You know, Gary's been there less time than that. He scored quite a few more goals than that, as well as making a lot. I don't think many St Johnstone fans would be upset if he was left out of the teams. We got in somebody better. We have somebody better. It's Graham Carey, another St Mirren player. And I would rather see him start than McPherson.
So let's move on to the shock of the day yesterday. I know it wasn't Falkirk against Hearts. I'm not even going there yet. It was League Two Spartans beating Ross County by 1-0. Blair Henderson after 46 minutes. Robbie, I mean, I watched the highlights. Ross County created a lot of chances. We didn't take them. Ross County, Spartans took the one that they needed. What a result for Spartans. What a day for them. And like I said earlier, they now get a trip to Pataudry for the quarter-final, which will get a lot of money for a club like Spartans. That is an absolutely brilliant result. And to be fair, some folk, I think actually Mikey might have said this could have been a shock. I didn't see it coming, but what a result for Spartans.
Oh, absolutely fantastic for Spartans. I mean, I predicted Spartans to go through on penalties. I thought they might have been able to hold out, but I mean, wow. If we're speaking on the goal, I mean, what a goal it was from Henderson. I mean, that header was tremendous for him. And I think, you know, if you hold out enough that Ross County can miss enough chances and you get your chance, he calmly took it. And all credit to them, and for Spartans it's brilliant, and they now reap the rewards because they've got a big day out at Pataudry, so absolutely fair play to them. And I suppose I said on Friday, I mean, that is the magic of the cup. That is what can happen if you have belief and you can hold out long enough to get through. So all credit to Spartans, because that's absolutely massive for them.
I mean, Alistair, I love cup football, apart from there's a shock, so I don't want to go too much on to Hearts yesterday, but honestly, for a League Two side to do that to a Premiership side, and I think probably a lot of folk thought Ross County would win comfortably. I did as well. But honestly, what a result for Spartans. And to go to Pataudry now for that next round, like I said, they'll get some money for it. It's going to be a big occasion for them. It's an absolutely brilliant result for Spartans, and fair play to them.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It's all the things that both you guys have just said. I mean, I've watched the highlights, and yes, you're right. Ross County did have a lot of chances, and I believe Flip Clement said that it should have been 5-1 to Ross County. And you actually look at the goal; it's a brilliant goal, and it's the thing about it is, again, we're all hypocrites. I mean, I can remember a game against Kelty Hearts a few years ago where we got turned over, and it's like disaster, and it was a disaster. So for the big club, it is a disaster. But it's actually what keeps you coming back to football, because if it went to form all the time, apart from the fact that bookmakers would be absolutely even more rich than they are now, it would be boring as anything. And it's the fact you go into these games and you have an underdog's chance, whether that's St Mirren or St Johnstone or Ross County playing Celtic or Rangers, or whether it's Spartans playing Aberdeen, or Hearts playing, well, Falkirk got a good team these days, but we've all experienced that. I won't mention the team in the Highlands that Hearts played a few years back. So we've all experienced it. Every other fan in the country, apart from the fans whose team have just been beat, are going, that's absolutely brilliant. That's what cup football's about. And they're right. It is brilliant, and it's what cup football's all about.
Yeah, and Paul says, hope Spartans are able to bring up a big credit with Tawdry. Absolutely. I mean, Robbie, just in terms of Ross County, Alistair's right. Brora Rangers for Hearts was one of the worst results in our history, and these things happen. But in terms of Ross County, how big a disappointment could that be for the rest of their season?
I mean, I think it could be huge. I thought, take Darvel by Aberdeen, for example. I mean, that result will still get looked back on in years to come as an embarrassing result as well for the team in a cup. For Ross County, I think you need to just look at it as, this has happened. We need to try and kick on now. Don't try and let it affect you too much, because it can ruin a team's season if you let it get you ahead a bit too much. So I think in terms of Ross County, they did create a lot of chances, and I'm sure they'll look back at that as, that's a missed opportunity there to get through to the next round. But just kick on, and I think Ross County are another one of their teams where a lot of people wrote them off early in the season, said, they're bearing around that relegation spot. But if they can just bounce back for that defeat, which, it's easier said than done, and I'm sure they can kick on, have a fine season. But again, as you said, it can really, really affect a team if they're not careful.
Right, I can't put it off any longer. Falkirk 2, Hearts 0. Jesus, how do I start with this? Ethan Ross after 53 minutes and Dylan Tate after 81 minutes gave Falkirk a deserved victory. For the first 20 minutes, I thought Hearts were excellent. I thought we created a lot of chances. Could have been 4 or 5 up. But second half, we were terrible. Now, I said it on Twitter, and I think I said it in the group chat. 8 changes for me was far too much. Now, I know we've got a big squad, but for me, Alistair, that was far too many changes. Not starting Shanklin, not playing your best players. And Stephen Naismith actually came out after the game yesterday and said that he now knows he can't rotate. That second half was an absolute embarrassment. But I will say straight off the bat, well done, Falkirk. That was a great victory for them. But for Hearts so far in the domestic campaign, it's 3 defeats. A draw and 2 defeats, and we've not scored a goal yet. Really, really poor. And the 8 changes, I think I said that last night as well, it seems to me that we took Falkirk too lightly. I knew it'd be a hard game. I think we took Falkirk too lightly, and we've paid for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, again, I've watched the highlights. Hearts did create a lot of chances. Philip Clement said it should have been 5-2 to Hearts. But you actually look at Falkirk and what they've done in the last couple of years. I mean, they were brilliant last year. They were really good. I watched them, I think it was Queen's Park a couple of Fridays ago, and they were excellent. So there was no way they weren't going to give you a really good game. And yes, you did highlight in the chat the fact that 8 changes is nonsense. And you were right, because unless you've got the size of squad of sort of Celtic, I wouldn't even include Rangers in this, just Celtic, you can't make that number of changes. I mean, on a sort of more parochial level, we did exactly the same when we were playing away to East Fife. Was it East Fife? I can't remember. Whoever it was who beat us 3-2 was East Fife. And you just think, why change the team when you've got a winning team that's actually, all the players know their positions, they know what they're doing. It was a stupid thing to do. And to some extent, he got his comeuppance. And Falkirk, they took their chances, they went through. They deserved to go through, and obviously got a difficult draw now, mind. But for Hearts, there's no way Hearts aren't still going to be right up there at the top of the league next season. These are very, very early days. Robbie's point about Ross County. Ross County are 9 times out of 10 would probably have won that game. But that was the one time they didn't do it. And they'll actually, because they've got a chairman with some money, they can put money into the game when it comes to the next transfer window. So I think Ross County are still going to be quite a difficult team to actually overcome for the rest of the teams at the bottom of the table. For Hearts, yeah, these things happen. As I said earlier on, it's every other fan rejoices. It might be the only consolation Hibs fans have this weekend.
Probably.
But Falkirk are a good team. I would not be surprised to see Falkirk. Well, certainly, I think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yeah. So I don't think Hearts got it right. They got it badly wrong, and as a result, they got beat. It's almost as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie, I said it yesterday. All credit to Falkirk. They deserved to win the game, especially the second half. But I hate being proved right. And I thought the 8 changes was going to come back to haunt us. And it absolutely did. If you're going to make 8 changes, the changes that you make have got to be as good as the ones that you've left out. And for me last night, unfortunately, they weren't. And it was proved right because Falkirk deserved that win yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to Falkirk. Absolutely massive win for them. I mean, you did speak about the changes, but I like to ask you in a minute, that's 2 weeks now where, the goalkeepers for Hearts have arguably made big howlers leading to goals. I mean, you look at the one in Dundee with Zander, now look at the one with Craig Gordon yesterday. So, I mean, I just want to ask you, what's in the mind, do you think, of Naismith and the 2 goalkeepers that, they've both come into the team, arguably 2 of the most trustworthy goalkeepers in the league. I'd say definitely 2 of the best at the peaks in the league, in my opinion, anyway. And they've both come in and made bad decisions in the game, but you've got to give huge credit to Falkirk. I mean, it's probably not the draw they wanted now, but to even get there is massive for them, so credit to them. I thought over the game, Hearts might have created a few more chances, but Falkirk created just as good chances to go on and win the game, and they took them, so credit to them, and they're through the next round to a game where, no, I don't think they'll get through, but they're there, and they're there to compete, so who knows what can happen.
Well, I've just had a message from Stephen Naismith asking if I'm available for the goalkeeping position on Thursday against Pilsen. I'm a bit tied up that day, so I don't think I'm available for that. But, I mean, he's already said he's not got a guaranteed number 1. And I've said this weeks ago, you need to have a cast iron number 1 and stick to that number 1, unless there's injuries or a really bad run of form. Craig Gordon was great yesterday, but he made a really poor mistake for the second goal. But I've got to give credit to Falkirk. They were excellent, deserved the win. And now they've got Celtic, so I'm not actually that bothered we're out now. But let's move on to the team that was absolutely fantastic yesterday. No, not Falkirk, just done them. Dundee 6, Airdrie 1. Pamela Holden, Jordan McGee, Scott Tiffany, Antonio Portales, Curtis Main and Leo Cameron scoring for Dundee. Adam Frizzell with a goal for Airdrie. Alistair, I thought on Friday this would be a tough game for Dundee because Airdrie's a good side. But what a resounding victory that was for Dundee.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been touching this before. Dundee last season were a lot better than anybody expected them to be. They obviously, sorry to bring this up again, they obviously had a very good win against Hearts, partly, as Robbie says, down to goalkeeping errors. Incidentally, by the way, whoever's playing Hearts next, you just turn out in navy blue. That's obviously the answer.
It's a cart, man. It's a cart.
But you look at Dundee also in the earlier stages of the League Cup. They were knocking in a lot of goals against lower division teams. So, yes, it was a surprise because Airdrie are a good team. But to some extent, it wasn't because Dundee are going to carry on this season and be the same as they were last year. I think as the season goes, I wouldn't be surprised if round about Christmas we're sitting having conversations about where's it going to end up, and Dundee are actually halfway up the table and pushing strongly for the top half. And I said at the start, I think St Mirren probably should be challenging at the top 6. But if they have a bad run of form, that might not be the case. Same with Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock, we've talked about actually not having a good start to the season. And that does make a difference. But Dundee, I just think, they're not a team I suspect that anybody would have wanted in this draw. If you think about it, who did you not want? And especially if it had been at Dens. Obviously, it's not at Dens. But if it had been at Dens, I think that would be a much, much harder game for Rangers.
Yes, a fair point, actually, Robbie. Dundee have started the season very well, but they will go to Hampden really quite buoyant after that, knowing that they can cause Rangers problems with the quality they've got. And, to beat a very good Airdrie side, I think they're a very good side, Airdrie. And I don't think that'll derail them too much in the Championship. But to basically dismantle Airdrie by 6-1 is a fantastic performance.
It's brilliant, and I mean, I think at a lot of the season, you always put a team on to sort of drop off a wee bit. A lot of people put Dundee as that team that sort of are going to drop off, but the way they've started, you can only see them finishing higher than they did last season. So, I mean, all credit needs to go to them. Obviously, to dismantle an Airdrie team like that is, it's impressive whether you're a Premiership team or not. I mean, you just need to look at yesterday to realise some of the upsets that can happen. So for Dundee to be that professional and get the job done was amazing. And you need to look at some of the goals. I mean, one of the big criticisms I've seen for Dundee fans was Curtis Main through some of last season, this season. He wasn't scoring enough as much as, I mean, myself included, knew he could. But the goal he took yesterday was absolutely amazing. I mean, I've never seen him do that sort of move before on a goal. So fair play to him. But aye, for Dundee, it's absolutely massive, and I think going to Hampden it'll be tough for them. No doubt. I mean, Rangers again. We've spoke about it multiple times with the sort of problems going on there. I think Dundee should really fancy themselves for this game, and it's definitely one of the teams Rangers didn't want to play. So I think that could be a game where we'll probably speak about it closer to the time, but that could be a real trouble game for Rangers, and I think Dundee can fancy themselves to go and potentially advance for the semi-finals.
I do think one of the problems, not problems, one of the reasons for Dundee's success is Tony Dog. Now, there's a guy going into management, having been Dell's number 2 for years. And again, I know from his time at Saints, the two of them were popular, but they were very good and very professional. And he's just taken it like a duck to water. He can spot a player clearly, and he can spot a player who fits into his dressing room and fits into the team. And those are the ingredients of a successful manager. It's really hard to do that.
The final game yesterday was at Pittodrie. Aberdeen 1, Queen's Park 0. Topi Keskinen, the new £1 million man, scoring a winning goal. Alistair, in cup football, we all know it's about getting through. Aberdeen had a lot of chances yesterday, but I've got to say, I thought Queen's Park were fantastic yesterday. They had chances just like Aberdeen did, but Aberdeen got the job done. What did you make of that game yesterday?
Well, I noticed Callum Davidson's comments after it, and again, you were expecting Aberdeen to win that. That was, Aberdeen are on a run of form. Queen's Park, okay, being a bit iffy, but you actually looked at it and went, yeah, that's a really good performance. Again, it's a cup tie. It's the kind of game where they're really going to be up for it against a team that they know is good, that's in a good run of form. And I was watching the scores coming through yesterday and thinking, you know what, this is the kind of thing which I wasn't aware of the details of the game, but this could be an upset because it's 0-0, it's 0-0, it's still 0-0. The game should be over by now, And then, as you say, obviously the myth about Aberdonians being mean is not true because they've shelled out a lot of cash for this guy. And okay, it's his first instalment to pay off that amount of money. I think Aberdeen are going to have a good season, and I think they will beat Spartans, so they're in the semi-final. Nobody will want to play Aberdeen if they're carrying on this run of form. If they keep on winning and showing the kind of resolve they've done in the organisation, nobody will want to play them. Yeah,
Robert, it's a fair point. Aberdeen do look good, and they have strength, and they'll get the money, of course, from Majowski. They will strengthen further. But to spend money, we said this on Friday, $1 million on a player. I don't think that's happened for a long time out with Celtic and Rangers. But that's a massive, massive win for Aberdeen yesterday, because that's a potential banana skin. At 0-0, could have got extra time. They could have gone out. But I think you've got to give credit to Queen's Park as well. They set up very well. They had chances, but Aberdeen got the job done. And so far, Jimmy Thielen's done a very, very good job.
Yeah, Thielen's been fantastic. And I was like Alistair yesterday, just sitting looking at my phone, like, could Queen's Park actually sneak a result here? I mean, as the longer it went on, that's the more you thought. But listen, what a goal it was from that player for Aberdeen. I can't remember his name. It was absolutely brilliant strike. I mean, some turn with the ball, and the goalie has no chance. So a brilliant goal for him. Thielen's had a brilliant start. I mean, we never like to look too far ahead because anything can happen. And they'll say this, and both teams will probably go out. But, there's a semi-final lineup there, potentially Aberdeen versus Dundee. I mean, what a semi-final that could be if both teams can find their way through the games. But no, listen, it's brilliant for Aberdeen. Unfortunate for Queen's Park because, there was a real chance there for them to win the game the longer it went on, but it just wasn't to be. So credit to Aberdeen. I mean, they got the job done, and now they can look forward to a good quarter-final game. Probably a win against Spartans. You'd have to back them.
Before we go, question for Alistair from Lewis Edwards. Alistair, what does St Johnstone need to do to stay up?
Well, apart from somebody else to be worse than us, we need another midfielder. We need another midfielder who... Levine has said he wants a midfielder who wins second balls. That's fine. We probably need that. We need to keep the guys we've got up front because they will trouble defences, and we need, because obviously the poor guy McClellan's ruptured Achilles, so he's out for ages. We need probably another centre back. and then we need a bit of luck. Simple as that.
So there you go. That's an hour done. Just again, before we go, just to let you know what the draw is for the Scottish Cup. I wish it was. The League Cup quarter-final, it is Aberdeen against Spartans, Rangers against Dundee, Celtic v Falkirk, and Dundee United against Motherwell. We are back, as always, next Friday at 5 till 7, then back on Sunday as well. I have been Graham Duthie. Thank you, as always, to Robbie Collins and Alistair Blair for joining me today. It's been a very good show. Hope you have a cracking end of the weekend, and we shall see you again next week. Take it easy, folks.